Welcome if it's your first time, and welcome back if it's not. Today, what I would like to do is take this watercolor pad and turn it into a sketchbook. I know watercolor sketchbooks can be super expensive, and I think the more you can find ways to kind of customize what you need. I know in my personal practice, sometimes I'm really either picky or specific about what I want out of a sketchbook. And I know that having learned how to make my own sketchbooks has really opened up a gate, like creatively, where I can make a sketchbook that keeps me excited about what I'm, where I'm drawing, where I'm painting. And because watercolor sketchbooks can be so expensive, I just wanted to show a way to kind of get the whole package while keeping things on the cheaper side. My goal is to use everything that's here. I think I'm kind of debating about using this for the cover. My only worry is that it does seem to be warped a little bit, and as moisture kind of gets absorbed into this board, it will continue to warp. I have a sketchbook here that I did, where is it? Here it is. I have a sketchbook that I made up a couple months ago, and you can kind of see that's happening with this here. It's not the end of the world, but it is, if you're giving it as gifts or maybe even selling, for me, I just want it to be as close to perfect as we can get it. And that warp is, if I was buying a new sketchbook, I wouldn't be super jazzed about that. But it is kind of like, it is what it is, So I think in this project today, I'm gonna try using this as our cover. And we're gonna start by taking these pages out. Will be our first step, and we'll kind of just keep chugging along from there. I'm gonna try to keep this short and sweet, so hopefully it won't be super long, and maybe we'll even all learn a little something about ourselves and about the process of making sketchbooks. So what I would like to do is, we could cut these out. I think when I was playing with another pad, I'm just gonna bend these. They have these little bits here that you can bend. So I'm just gonna bend these real quick. And that way we don't have to deal with cutting them, and we can cut along this line here and try to get as much paper this way. So sometimes when you tear it, also with watercolor paper, it's just so thick that it's not super easy to tear. And you don't want to ruin the paper any more than you can or stress the paper out. Paper has really good memory, so it is definitely one of those things where you try to disturb the paper as little as possible unless you need to. So now we should be able to just feed this back through this way. There you go. We can recycle this, and we've got all our paper here ready to get sketchbookified. I'm going to take the backing and that cover. I'm just gonna set these aside for now. We won't need these till a little bit later. And then we will get sorted with these pages here. Step number 2, we're gonna cut this edge off here. Typically what I would use, if, the most accessible option, take yourself a flat or a straight edge, line this up right along here so you can, I would try to get it as close as you can to that edge, and then take an X-Acto knife like this and then cut right along that. For purposes of speediness, I'm gonna bring in my paper guillotine, and I'm gonna chop those off just so I can move a little quicker. This is my paper guillotine, an awfully metal name for such a simple machine. So I'm just gonna chop the heads off these, if you will. Chop, chop, chop. And then we'll come back once that's all finished up. All right, we've got our paper edges cut. I'm going to introduce a new tool, our bone folder. This is going to help us score the center of these pages. We're going to reintroduce our old friend, the ruler or straight edge, depending on what you want to call it. We're going to measure our center, and then we're going to use the bone folder to score that center. What that does is it compresses the paper and it encourages it to fold there. Sometimes especially with thicker paper, like watercolor, you know, it kind of has that board quality. Bristol board also will do this. If you fold it without scoring it first, it'll kind of crack the paper. But because we're compressing that, it kind of creates a weak point, which in this case is good for us, and it will fold at that point. We're gonna score it, and you can use other tools too. You could use, let's see, what do I have here? I haven't done it, but I'm gonna guess you could use the backside of a brush. Now, depending on how the brush is painted, you might leave a mark. So just beware of that. Maybe you do some experimenting before you fully commit. But bone folder is what it's made for. It's a bookbinding tool that you can use for scoring and folding. Once it's folded, you can use this to then kind of help fold that edge nice and tight. So we will start scoring and folding now. Okay. So these are cut to 12 inches. So that's going to make measuring a little easier for me. I like to try to do round numbers. Maths aren't my strong suit, we'll say. So let's do something like that. I try to make small marks as well, just so that when it's folded, it's not going to be distracting when it's in your sketchbook forever. I'm gonna bring in the bone folder. I'm just going to use this edge right here. I'm just going to kind of gently press down. I go over it a couple times just to make sure I've got it. You can see that line depressed in there. So now we'll give her a fold. Use the bone folder again. Now we can see already that my measurements were not very good, or I did not follow my line very well, but that we can always cut that edge down a little bit. If that's really gonna bother you, you can always cut your edges down just a touch. Sometimes you'll have a wonky page here and there, but I'm gonna do this to the rest of them, and then we will move to the next step. All right, things are looking pretty solid. If we focus up here, you can see it's not perfectly even, but honestly, I can live with that. in my dream life, I could have it be, perfectly even all the time, but I think that is pretty acceptable for not having a very specific and expensive machine that kind of cuts those edges down. To me, that seems pretty passable. I did have an issue with some of these edges not quite lining up. If it's your first time and you spent a lot of money on your watercolor paper, maybe practice on some printer paper just to get the feel, because paper will sometimes go a little squirrely on you. But at the end of the day, some of the corrections that I made, I rescored here, and then this one was off a little bit. You can kind of see the memory there, and I just pulled it back to where it was and then just worked the bone folder out to kind of create a new memory. And you can kind of see a little bit where that old fold was on both sides. And it seems like I got it worked out. You usually can correct the mistake. You just have to, be slow, be diligent, and you'll get there. So now that the paper's folded up, you could, if you wanted to, you could make these little squares. They do feel a little tall to me, but I hate wasting material. So part of me is also like, dang man, that's almost 2 inches if you're gonna cut that down to be a little more of a little short king. But I like the way that is. I mean, you can use it, you can do landscapes this way. You can do, draw thumbnails this way, whatever you want. Journal. My wife has a watercolor book that I gave her, and she does a bunch of scrapbooking in it. So they're pretty versatile. Obviously, it's watercolor paper, so it's also going to hold up to pretty much anything you're going to do to it. The next step is binding. So we're going to bind these, let it sit for a little bit, and then we'll come back and do a second gluing. I don't know if really any of that is. I'll kind of talk about that when we get to that step. So I showed this in my last video. This is actually a flower press that I bought years ago, and I've been using it to press books. You put your book in between here, and it kind of gives it an even pressing along the whole thing. I understand that not everyone has one of these. So what I'm going to use is a couple of bulldog clips. I think I've heard these called binder clips, to press our book to get it ready for gluing up. Typically what I'm trying to do is I'm going to take this right over center. The nice thing about it being longer is that makes this segment that isn't initially getting glued smaller. I try to minimize how big that spot isn't getting glued just to help with structural integrity. I don't know if I'm kind of over dramatizing it at all or anything, but in my mind, that's what I'm always kind of trying to fight, is anything that could go wrong with the final lifetime of the sketchbook. I always think about how often I'm opening the sketchbook and kind of cracking the spine and all of that. So those are the things I'm always trying to kind of avoid, anything that could create weaknesses there. But even that, I mean, that's pretty well pressed. It looks straight. I think that could be ready to glue up. I'm gonna get the glue and we'll hit it. So I'm going to just throw an eraser in here. It's gonna help kind of create this kickstand effect. Just because the book is a little skinnier, so I don't want to lose it at all. And I guess I'll show you now. So this is our next object. I guess it's not quite a tool, but this is the glue that I use. I sometimes have a hard time tracking it down online. It seems like it's kind of generic, but I'm working on figuring out what's the best replacement. The key elements I like about this glue is that it dries relatively thick, so I think in my mind that kind of helps give it a more surface area to kind of wear and tear. It also dries pretty flexible, which I really like, so that when you are really cracking that spine open, you're able to not worry about it cracking or becoming brittle. I'm sure there is a more appropriate glue. Sometimes I've used PVA bookbinding glue. It's a little more expensive, but this stuff's super cheap. So if you know of any other glues that would kind of fit that criteria, let me know. But we're gonna get this glued up. Really, the big thing I'm doing is trying to make sure that there's plenty there and that it's getting all the way to the edge. I want to make sure my 2 bits on the end are definitely getting the glue they need, just because you're always a little worried about glue running down the edge. So as long as you're keeping that in touch, it should be okay. I'm just gonna do the other side, and then I let this sit for at least, maybe an hour or 2. I don't remember exactly what the directions say, but minimum an hour or 2. Sometimes I'll let it sit overnight. Day 2, we're looking pretty solid. Looks like everything glued up pretty straight. You can see where our clips were there, but it's nothing too major. The glue's just a little tacky. I don't know if I'd even say tacky, but there's just a hint of stickiness. That's usually what I wait for, just to make sure the glue's cured enough. You can see there's a little bit of air bubbles in there, but that's fine. I mean, it's not like a resin pour. It's not gonna structurally change anything. So I think we'll work on getting the cover on this bad boy. So we're gonna bring our old friends back. This is the cover and that chipboard backing. I think what my plan is to use this as the cover. I think I'm just gonna have it be white. That way, it's easiest. You could decorate it. You could also wrap this in another paper. You could paint it. You could really do whatever you'd like with it. Like I was talking about earlier, I am just worried that there's just a little too much warp to this. I think it's just a little too thick. I don't think it has quite enough give. So I'm gonna save this for another project. Sometimes too, it's nice to keep if you're thrifting frames. Sometimes they don't have backings, and these work super great as backing. So I always try to save material like this because we can use it. So we'll try to use as much of the buffalo as we can here. Let's start with tearing these nubbins off. Well, not tearing, we're gonna cut them off. We'll bring in our X-Acto knife. I'm not gonna be too exact about this. I just want it to be straight is really what we're going for. So I'm just gonna eyeball this. Do a couple little passes. That looks pretty solid. All right, next I'm gonna do kind of like what we did with our paper, where I'm gonna find where the center is, and I'm gonna cut this in half because we're gonna tape the spine. So the spine will be exposed, but we'll have a nice heavy-duty piece of tape that's gonna kind of help protect that. And then this is gonna be glued to this page here. So this page will be our cover, and then this will be kind of our first spread. So I think we're really only sacrificing 2 halves to make 1 sheet, which I think I can handle to have a little bit of a protective cover. So we're a little over 12. These are probably gonna have to get cut down anyways. Again, just making some little marks so you can't erase them, nothing too crazy to take away from what you're working with. All right, we've got 2 halves, 2 pretty close halves. So we'll bring back our sketchbook, and then we're just gonna make sure that that lines up good. a little bit of overhang. You know, now that I see it, I really don't mind this kind of sketchbook look. I've done it before with other books and I wasn't crazy about it, but there's something about it. I think I also love these thistle flowers, but I think that might be the move. I guess I could do it this way too so that it matches up when you open it, when you fully open it. Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's do that. It's a dumb little thing, but hey, it's for us. Before we glue our cover on, we do need a tape. So this is a book binding tape. I think this says Book Guard here. If you look up book binding tape, you can definitely find it. It's just kind of got it's like a duct tape, but it's got kind of a fabric body and then an adhesive side. So as far as I understand it, when you tape this, it kind of helps contain everything. It protects from here around to this side. It's gonna protect all this bending, opening. And so when the glue, or my thought at least is, when the glue starts to go weak, the tape is here to kind of support it. At least that's how I understand it. Nonetheless, it seems like a good thing to do. So what I do, this also, if you were going to add some bands, some little page markers, now would be your time. Actually, why don't we just do that now so I can show you. So what we're gonna do is get yourself a strip of ribbon that's a little longer than your book. I like to make it a little bit fancy. I'm gonna cut this down to an angle. Ooh! So, I then kind of use my fingernail just to press this in to that glue. There is just a little bit of stickiness in that glue still, and there will be for probably 48 hours, I would imagine, just to help hold that in place. Next, I'm going to take just a little band of this black tape, and we're going to just put that over. It's kind of doubling it up, so I'm using this to hold on to this ribbon, and it, in turn, it will hold on. It'll help kind of brace these edges. I think the edges are always where things get weakest first. Whoa, slamming the scissors. We'll just throw another one here since we're out here doing it. Now I'm gonna take a whole sheet of this tape. I'm gonna take this, I'm kind of eyeballing the length. Just gonna even this out. I kind of cut it at an angle. So my goal is to make it just a little shorter than the whole thing, just so there's not overhang. You can do it with a little bit of overhang and cut it off. I just am trying to not have too much. And then I'm just gonna kind of eyeball this as well. Man, there's a lot of eyeballing going on. And I think I sometimes get caught up too much on like all the little nitty-gritty details. And really at the end of the day, we're having fun, we're making stuff to be creative. So for me, I kind of am a little slapdash. If I'm making a sketchbook for someone else, I definitely try to tighten it up a little bit. But since this one's just gonna be a pretty simple little guy, I think, I don't think it's gonna be too fancy. I'm just gonna tuck this back in. So that even feels a little bit long. So I'm gonna actually cut, now that it's tucked, you can see we're tucked up there. I'm just gonna cut this down maybe like that. That feels good to me. Seems reasonable. So I have in the past just kind of stopped at this point. You know, you've got, everything's bound. So you've got everything you need to use this thing, I would say. The next steps are what I'm gonna call, what's the word for it? The fancification. You know, this is where you could either take a vintage book. I mean, ideally you would have already cut this to size so you would know what vintage book you're gonna put this in. You could put that in a vintage book. You know, you could come along, make yourself a nice little painting to put on this, a drawing, a painting. You could take some sort of decorative paper, cover this, glue it onto this, and then use that. I have a book of these. Oh, do I have a good example? Oh, the sketchbook that I showed earlier in the video. So this is a book that I have this decorative paper, and you can see I just kind of folded it in around the edges. You can do that, and then that would get glued onto this page. You know what I mean? So you have options. This also is, you can kind of see how that chipboard is a little thicker. I think I showed you this where it is warping. So I'm gonna try to use a thinner cover for this one. Next, we're gonna bring in the old trusty Elmer's glue. You could definitely use other glues if you want. I usually use a PVA glue. It's a little more archival. It's more for what we're doing, but this seems to work all right. I haven't had any issues yet. I don't know, I always bounce between whether using a fancy glue or basic glue, but it's, like I said, it seems to be doing exactly what I need it to. And then the other thing we're gonna need, a brush. It doesn't have to be any specific brush. You're just gonna use it to kind of spread your glue out evenly so you have a thin layer. The other thing too is, because the glue is a little liquid, you will have a little bit of time to correct and adjust things as you get it on, so don't feel like you have to get it perfect right away. Just gave myself a little paper cut. Dang, dude. All right, let's glue this bad boy on. I'm gonna bring in what I'm gonna call a messy board. This is just an old drawing pad cover. Oh, can you see the white on white? Is it better if I do it this way? Is that crazy? Yeah, let's do it like that. All right, so my glue nozzle has been kind of peeving me off lately, so I'm just gonna pour a little bit on. It's maybe a little bit crazy, but I just can't be bothered to fight the glue nozzle for like what feels like a half hour. Be sure to get all your edges. I try to really make sure I'm getting the edges. I try to work kind of quick because the paper does want to start warping a little bit because it's feeling all that moisture, and it's like, ooh, yeah, the moisture. All right, so I'm just gonna grab this, move this over so I don't knock glue all over. We're gonna take this out. We're gonna roll this back over. Here we go. Remember to put that the right place. So I'm gonna touch it down. I'm looking at this back spine to make sure that's feeling good. That's feeling good to me. I do have this little tool here. It's just a little roller. Just hopefully help kind of roll things out. Make sure there's no air bubbles. Just get that glue in contact with that paper as much as we can. You will get a little bit of glue, you know, skirting out the edge, all that kind of stuff. So try to, you know, not fret about that too much. I'll kind of do a little wipe here. like we got a little bit of movement, but I think we're in a place where I don't know if we can move that much more. So she is what she is, I think. That's another, I mean, it's funny how much, you know, when you start a painting, you have an idea of where you want it to go and how you want it to look, and sometimes the paint has other plans for you. It's funny how much sketchbooks are like that too. Like maybe it's just any creative process where you start doing it and then all of a sudden the materials are like, actually, this is how it's gonna go. And you're like, well, I guess that's how it's gonna go. So you can see there's a couple little spots where we have glue. I'm not too worried about that. I don't know why it's such a different matte color. I bet you could even put a layer of Mod Podge or something over this if you wanted to add that protective layer. But my problem with Mod Podge is it always gets kind of sticky. So I'm probably not gonna do that, but we have a little bit of excess here, which we'll cut that off. Like I said, I'm not too worried about that. We're just gonna do this backside, get her glued up, and then we will let it sit for a little while. I'm gonna put a heavy book on top of it so it can dry, but we'll get that backside on first. All right, got this bad boy glued up. Just wanna make sure, yeah, that's the way. So I'm gonna set that back on there. Maybe you'll be able to see, let's zoom that in just a little bit. See how I'm lining this edge up. Obviously, we're gonna need to move her up. Okay. That feels good. It's also kind of in shadow, so I apologize for that. I think I can live with this. Let's try to take a look. I don't know if you can hear my cats running around. It's almost time to feed them and they're all getting a little squirrely. So this is a tool used, I think, for printing. So you can kind of roll prints. I saw someone else use it for, I think they were scrapbooking, and they used one of these to kind of like, when they glue sticked something, they would kind of throw this down just to like help get everything pressed. And I was like, dang, that's a good idea. So, I mean, this is we're kind of there, y'all. Like I said, I'm gonna let this dry just a little bit longer. We'll trim these edges and then we'll kind of do some glamour shots here at the end, okay? All right, here we are. I can still feel there's a little bit of moisture, so it's not perfectly dry, but for the sake of this video, I think this kind of is the conclusion. I am just gonna trim these edges real quick and then we can kind of do a debrief at the end. Here we are, final product. You know, it's not gonna win any beauty contests, but I think we're all right. There is, just because of the moisture from the glue, we're a little, still a little curved there. I'm going to let this sit under a book for a day or two, just so it's pressed flat. But I mean, if you were in a pinch, you needed a sketchbook within maybe I made this within 24 to 48 hours. I think this is probably the quickest way. You use the most amount of materials, kind of got the most bang for your buck, and you've got a watercolor sketchbook that you can take anywhere. You know, it's not a ton of pages, so really the simplicity should take some wear and tear. I did notice when we bend it, oh, that's not so bad. For a little bit, I thought, because I put 2 layers of glue back here, I thought maybe it wouldn't hold wide open, but it is a little bit resistant just because there is so much, what is it, glue? There's so much glue back here, so if folding it flat is very important to you, maybe just do one layer. It's important to me, but you know, I can throw some binder clips here to help hold it open, and that doesn't really bother me, you know, so I'm okay with this. I think this looks nice. We got a sweet little guy. And there's something really satisfying to me to use, like not use anything other than what came with the pad of paper itself. I mean, obviously other than exterior tools, but I really enjoy being able to just like make something with what I have. Obviously, this is the base of everything. If this is all you have, this will get you a sketchbook. You know, if you want to really zhuzh it up and decorate, like I said, you could always cut your paper down to size, throw it in another vintage book. I've done that before. I have another video, not where I make this sketchbook, but this is one of my current going sketchbooks where it's this old vintage book that I found. I gutted it and filled it with a bunch of paper. So, you know, there's options out there for ways to really kind of make this your own, but at the end of the day, it's more about, you know, what you're putting in here, what you're using the sketchbook for as a play space. And I think a lot of artists, in my experience, it's less about how the sketchbook looks. I mean, obviously, we're visual creatures. We want a sketchbook to look nice, but at the end of the day, you just need it to do what you need it to do. It's kind of a tool to get you to whatever the art you're making is. At least that's how I look at it. I mean, there's a lot of theory, you know, you could throw around about the way a sketchbook should be used. For me, it's a play space. It's somewhere where I can unabashedly kind of throw things around. I was just kind of doing I had some friends that we were trying to draw Pikachu from memory. You know, I'm just playing. Sometimes things feel more finished. Sometimes it's just play. But for the most part, it's somewhere where I can take notes, I can experiment, throw things, you know, it's partly journal sometimes too. It fills a lot of roles for me personally, but I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was useful. I really enjoy making these, and I'm sure I will see you in the next one. If you made it this far, thanks for hanging out, and happy art making.